So we've had some comment about an issue that viewers in Belgrade and Swift County are concerned about, and they've asked us to inquire of the panel on the status of the discussions about the taxation of Social Security benefits. We didn't, Senator McEwen, we didn't give you an opportunity to talk about that. Let's see, have you start with that. Where are those discussions about what, if anything, should be done relative to the taxation of Social Security benefits?
Yeah, well, there's differences of opinion within my own caucus. I think that, and we've seen some of that. Some people have spoken out against a full elimination of the Social Security uh, state tax, because overall, when you look at who the great bulk of that money would go to, it would be to wealthier retirees. And so, that said, there are many of us who are very keenly aware that ever since the Pawlenty years and not having a large enough LGA allotment for our cities, and my city in particular of Duluth, we've seen throughout the state that because we haven't kept pace with taking that income tax revenue and distributing out through the states to our municipalities. In turn, our municipalities have had to levy and do local flat taxes and property taxes. And those property taxes are really very hard on people with fixed incomes. They are very regressive as opposed to an income tax. So I'm very sympathetic to the idea that people in lower incomes and middle incomes, because of this regressive taxation pattern that we've been in, are being nickeled and dimed. And that includes in their taxation. And so I am very sympathetic to giving relief to people in middle and lower incomes. However, I am not very sympathetic to the idea of a full tax relief, because essentially that's a tax cut to the rich. And we need to go in a completely different direction than what that would do. And we have a lot of very important needs in our state. The surplus actually represents that we've been underfunding essential government services for years: education, childcare, healthcare, social services. We don't have yet a paid family medical leave program, which we should have had decades ago. There's a lot of catch up that we have to do. We have to replace all of the lead pipes in our entire state, a project that would have been nice if we started a decade or two ago. We knew we had to do it. So we have a lot of needs that have been neglected. And so it's absolutely appropriate that those with the most resources, who have gained the most from our society, the wealthiest individuals and corporations, should be paying the most. And so I don't support a full elimination. I know that there are some of my colleagues in my caucus who are fighting very hard for that. And I'm very sympathetic to the idea that we want to provide tax relief to retirees. But again, if you look at that, the bulk of it, the bulk of that money would go to the wealthiest retirees. And that specifically is not something I can support. I hope that at the end of the day, we're going to find some kind of compromise there.
Senator Weber, Social Security taxation.
Well, Minnesota is one of only 11 states that actually taxes Social Security benefits. And it's time that we got our name off of that list. Now, we can talk about the wealthy getting a tax break with this, but at some point, we're going to start seeing a great reduction in the number of those wealthy people. And quite frankly, there are a lot of people who are paying income tax on their Social Security benefits who are not wealthy people at the end of the day. And so we need to provide a total elimination of Social Security, of Minnesota state tax on Social Security benefits. These people worked for that money hard they contributed into this, into the fund, and they paid income tax on the money they earned, on which they paid Social Security tax, and now we ask them to pay it again. And quite frankly, that is wrong. And so we need to do that. And in addition, we need to also look at the rates that we are charging for our taxpayers. A Republican plan that was rolled out last week basically dealt with a 1% cut in the first two tiers of tax rates, dealt with a refund to all Minnesotans, dealt with child tax credit, and as well as some property tax reform, increasing the homestead exemption for residential ag resort properties. All these things need to be addressed, and we can talk about saying that the surplus is a result of us being underfunded. But if you look at our budget in the state of Minnesota, it has increased substantially in the last 10 years. And quite frankly, as we look at the number of dollars that we have been spending, we have to recognize that not every program takes money, but not every program achieves success as a result of the extra money that we put into it. And it's time that we took a step back and said we can't keep spending at that kind of a rate, and particularly with an $11 billion projected increase in the state budget. And so it is time for us to provide that tax relief to the people of Minnesota.
Representative Baker.
And again, I would have to echo a lot of what Senator Weber had to say. I think that with only 11 states left, the part of our issue now that we're having is the brand and the image of Minnesota. We've already been, we're in the higher end of most tax rates, most tax indexes. When you look around, we're just losing too many of our Minnesotans out of the state of Minnesota. They're voting with their feet. They are leaving the state because they can go elsewhere. And I'm told this many times over. I can save $40,000 on different things, and it might not just be their Minnesota income tax, but it's the thought of us still, charging any kind of income tax on Social Security income that they really shouldn't have to do anymore. I think we need to be taken off this list. It's costing us more money when we lose Minnesotans that are newly retired, still have some decent income going on, and yet they've paid their more than fair share over the years to help us with our services here too. It's something that most states have figured out. This is a losing issue. If we don't fix it, we're going to lose these people. And I think that's really important that we keep talking about this. I think it should be a full repeal of Social Security tax. And it's really what most folks campaigned on last fall. So I do hope we can find compromise. Like the senators have said, I think that's an important area. I hope that's something that we can really get our arms around. And again, it should be one of our top priorities that we do this year. So I'm still pushing hard, my colleagues in the House, that's something that we can agree to finish up, deal with it one time, and then we'll move on.
And Barry, if I could add one comment there, the cost to provide this type of tax relief is $1.26 billion. And when we have a $19 billion surplus, if we can't provide that type of tax relief to the senior citizens of Minnesota, when are we going to be able to do it? And so it is time.
Senator McEwen, do you want the last word on this, or should we move on?
We can move on, but I have one quick word, just one observation more. My observation is just, for me, it really is a question of who are we focusing on serving in our states? And again, it goes back to that wealth inequality piece. When I talk to my constituents, I don't talk to many people who tell me that they could save $40,000 if they move or if they did something different. I talk to people who say, I don't know how I am going to pay my heating bill. I don't know how I am going to continue to pay for my childcare. I don't know how these 2 or 3 jobs are going to get me by. So when we're talking about providing relief to people, to working Minnesotans, let's get serious about that. What does that look like? It means making sure that people's basic needs are met. It means relaxing the burden of property taxes on people who are on fixed incomes. It doesn't mean another cut of taxes for the wealthiest Minnesotans. It just doesn't. So I think it's just a question of framing. The question of branding is sort of, I get it, but I'm not worried about people moving from Minnesota because they're worried they're being taxed too much. I'm worried about Minnesotans being able to live and get by.
Well, I think we've explored this issue pretty thoroughly, and I'm guessing that future panels in the weeks ahead will have an opportunity to talk some more about it. So let's move on.